Welcome to the Urantia book. So as we were saying yesterday, knowledge for knowledge's sake is meaningless. Wisdom is the adaptation and application of that which you do know. So we're going to this part in the Urantia book called The Spirit and the Flesh. It is on page 382 under the local universe Mother Spirit. So right there, this book is a breaking of the shackles because normally people associate religions with, oh, God is a father and a man and stuff. But here is local universe Mother Spirit. You can read this entire chapter, but we're looking at just this part called Spirit and the Flesh. And also with religions, it seems like, well, is this just theological musings and philosophical, contemplations? Well, this book has a lot of very searing and helpful information to us in our current state. It has a lot of understanding as to what it is to be a human being on this planet. And you're going to see that here in this paper called The Spirit and the Flesh. So remember, have an open mind and don't get caught up on various word symbols if they don't really match up. Look for the concepts behind it. If you're too focused on this little word symbol aspect, then you're going to miss out on some really profound information here. So also, I want to remind people, like and subscribe. We're doing really well. So thanks again for all those people that are doing that. And if this is helpful for you, then a like would be appreciated. The Spirit and the Flesh. The flesh, the inherent nature derived from the animal origin races, does not naturally bear the fruits of the divine spirit, because we evolved from those animals, when the mortal nature has been upstepped by the addition of the nature of the material sons of God, as the Urantia races were in a measure advanced by the bestowal of Adam, then is the way better prepared for the Spirit of truth to cooperate with the indwelling adjuster to bring forth the beautiful harvest of the character fruits of the Spirit. So there's a lot of terminology there that if you're just jumping in or haven't read this book, material sons of God are beings that come to the planet when the human races reach a certain phase of their evolution, and then they uplift their DNA. They create offspring, and the offspring then breeds with the humans, or whatever word you want to call it, and then they are upstepped in their DNA. Materials, they call them ancient aliens if you're like a Joe Rogan type of listener or something like that. This explains exactly who those beings were. And they call them the Adam and the Eve. So there's the confusion between the Bible and what the Urantia book teaches as the reality of the planet was that the Adam and Eve aren't the first humans. They come after the humans evolve through animal evolution, as our science states is a fact, and then they're uplifted. Okay, so now once they're uplifted with this DNA, then the Spirit of Truth, which is an entity that helps us be more receptive to truth and understanding. It's like another helper, a spiritual helper, let's say, that indwells within us. And then the indwelling adjuster, that is our fragment of God. That's what people call their spirit. When they say, yeah, I feel like I have a spirit, they're referring to the adjuster there, okay? So when you get upstepped by this advanced DNA, then we're supposed to be able to bring forth the beautiful harvest of the character fruits of the Spirit, okay? So they're working together. If you do not reject this Spirit, even though eternity may be required to fulfill the commission, he will, quote, guide you into all truth. Okay, so they're saying this is an eternity event, but as long as you don't reject it, you're going to experience and live the truth. It might take a long time. We're dealing with eternity here, but it will eventually happen. You can be assured of that. Evolutionary mortals inhabiting normal worlds of spiritual progress do not experience the acute conflicts between the spirit and the flesh which characterize the present-day Urantia races. And if you're just joining, Urantia is the name of our planet by these advanced celestial beings. So a normal world wouldn't have these really, like, I just trying to give up alcohol. I've been trying to give it up for 3 years, and I'm just keep going back to it. And there's these real acute, they call it, conflicts between the spirit and the flesh. But even on the most ideal planets, pre-Adamic man must put forth positive efforts to ascend from the purely animalistic plane of existence up through the successive levels of increasingly intellectual meaning and higher spiritual value. So they're saying on those worlds, they had to do it. It was the Adamic DNA, again, which was helpful for them. I don't know if they're going to point this out, but we did have we had the DNA, but the plan went wrong here. So it was piecemeal, and I don't know if they point this out in this, but if not, we'll get into that more. The mortals of a normal world do not experience constant warfare between their physical and spiritual natures. They are confronted with the necessity of climbing up from the animal levels of existence to the higher planes of spiritual living, but this ascent is more like undergoing an educational training when compared with the intense conflicts of Urantia mortals in this realm of the divergent material and spiritual natures. We have these super intense food addiction. Look at it. We know it kills us. We're looking at the medical data. We know that even our life expectancy is declining these days because of our attachment to vice. But remember, these are escapisms. You can't blame yourself. You can't point a finger, because these are escapisms from the harsh realities of a world system of things that is rigged against us on purpose to benefit the very few, wealthy, elite, whatever, that control the world. Okay? So the divine knows that. They know the plan went wrong here. See, on these worlds, they have very clear spiritual leaders. Their Adam and Eve are still alive, and they form a center of learning on the planet. So it's much easier to say, hey, look at the data, look at the evidence. You want to eat yourself into an early grave? Whereas here, we have people lobbying to literally keep that narrative alive, that you should have X, Y, and Z. And they're spending billions on it because that is how they make their billions. If they lobby for 400 million to get some sort of regulation taken off, then they're going to make 400 billion. So we're actively being misled here, and they're preying on our base animal tendencies, which they know that we're real. We're talking about very wise beings that are controlling this world system of things. They know this base tendency is a reality because we evolved from animals, and animals are all about the food and whatever, you know. They even say primitive man has long since been infatuated with intoxicants, right? But are we to be primitive man? I thought we were supposed to evolve beyond that. It does point it out. The Urantia people are suffering the consequences of a double deprivation of help in this task of progressive planetary spiritual attainment. The Caligastia upheaval precipitated worldwide confusion and robbed all subsequent generations of the moral assistance which a well-ordered society would have provided. Now, the Caligastia, that was even before the Adam and Eve dispensation, as they explain in the history of Urantia. That was our first, quote, what somebody might call an ancient alien who came here with 100 beings, as there's a normal process on a planet, and they're supposed to help them, guide them, and teach them. But ours went into rebellion, this thing called the Lucifer Rebellion. And that is what precipitated this worldwide chaos. But even more disastrous, okay, was the Adamic default. Okay, so they defaulted as well. Our Adam and Eve didn't do the right plan. They went into the rebellion as well. They were more misled and everything, and you can read the details on that. But they did default. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. So it deprived our races of the superior type of the physical nature, which would have been more consonant with spiritual aspiration. So they're literally saying you have a physical nature which is backwards and retarded, and that is why you're animals and your spirit, and it's just a real, as we know, I mean, I know from my own life, Urantia mortals are compelled to undergo such marked struggling between the spirit and the flesh because their remote ancestors were not more fully atomized by the Edenic bestowal. So they didn't get as much of a proportion of that DNA. It was the divine plan that the mortal races of Urantia should have had a physical nature more naturally spirit responsive, right? So even like when you talk about the links between the physical and the spiritual, we're looking at our, what is it? The not the pituitary gland. I forget. There's the gland inside of your mind, which they call the spirit molecule or spirit gland, and it produces DMT, they think, or they don't really know what this thing is all about, but it produces like the things that help us dream and that sort of thing. So there are physical links to spiritual, notwithstanding that they're discrete and they are different realms, but there are some sort of ways to approach spiritual with, physical links. Notwithstanding this double disaster to man's nature and his environment, present-day mortals would experience less of this apparent warfare between the flesh and the spirit if they would enter the spirit kingdom, wherein the faith sons of God enjoy comparative deliverance from the slave bondage of the flesh and the enlightened and liberating service of the wholehearted devotion to doing the will of the Father of heaven. Okay, so they're saying, sure, you had this, but if you really decided to transcend, they're talking about transcendence here, then you would be much less, struggling. Like, for instance, my life personally, I decided to transcend alcohol, which was holding me back, and that was 7 years ago. And I don't feel any sort of tug of war like I did when I was battling it anymore. It's not even a reality in my life, and the urge isn't even a reality. Enlightened, comparative deliverance from the slave bondage of the flesh, and enlightened and liberating service of wholehearted devotion to doing the will of the Father. So that's how you do it. They're literally telling you the keys to get over your addiction right here. So that's why we're talking about wisdom. That's wisdom. If you can apply that, okay, it's not just philosophical musings or theological musings. They're saying you apply that, then you're going to have a much easier time. That's why in AA they say submit your will to a higher power, right? And that program has been very successful. Jesus showed mankind the new way of mortal living, whereby human beings may be very, very largely escape the dire consequences of the Caligastic rebellion and most effectively compensate for the deprivations resulting from the Adamic default. The spirit of life of Christ Jesus, okay, this is a quote probably from the Bible, has made us free from the law of animal living and the temptations of evil and sin. This is the victory that overcomes the flesh, even your faith. So Jesus was our way shower there. Those God-knowing men and women who have been born of the Spirit experience no more conflict with their mortal natures than do the inhabitants of the most normal of worlds, planets which have never been tainted with sin nor touched by rebellion. So they're saying, yeah, the physiology is an aspect of this, but the spirit transcends that. And so we can go to that phrase, spirit over mind over matter, where we used to think it was just mind over matter. Well, they're saying, no, there's something more fundamental than even your mind. Faith sons work on intellectual levels and live on spiritual planes far above the conflicts produced by unrestrained or unnatural physical desires. The normal urges of animal beings and the natural appetites and impulses of the physical nature are not in conflict with even the highest spiritual attainment, except in the minds of ignorant, mistaught, or unfortunately over-conscientious persons as well. So that is not something to be, if you're too all frazzled up, then you're going to need an escape too, as well, if you're over-conscientious about things. Having started out on the way of life everlasting, having accepted the assignment and received your orders to advance, this is great. This is breaking of the shackles right here. Do not fear the dangers of human forgetfulness. So we're, again, wiping fear out of our vocabulary. Don't fear, oops, I forgot, or I was inconstancy. Do not be troubled with doubts of failure or by perplexing confusions. Don't be troubled by that. Throw that away. Okay? You can this is telling you, throw all that stuff away and it will help you have a better life and lead a better life. As soon as you start to feel those thoughts creep up in your mind about, geez, I'm confused or do not falter and question your status and standing, for in every dark hour, at every crossroad, in the forward struggle, the Spirit of truth will always speak, saying, This is the way. So extremely important passages in the Urantia book about why we are the way that we are. So now nobody can have a stigma if they're an alcoholic or something like that. No stigma on you. No pointing the finger and saying, oh, I'm obese. Well, hey, you're genetically programmed. Not only are you genetically programmed to have like this, you know, tug of war between the higher nature and the lower nature because we weren't more fully atomized, but also the worldwide system things is fostering that. So you got your nature and your nurture. And so when people have that debate, oh, is it nature, is it nurture? Best way to solve that debate, it's roughly 50-50, okay? Because then you're taking each into consideration. Then you don't have, it's impossible to go through and calculate every single person's, every single one of their life events and every single genetic leading that they had since the dawn of humankind. So, but we know that they both play a role in it, right? So just rest on it's roughly 50-50. But again, the main point here, transcendence. Go to the spirit, as they say in AA. Look for your higher power. And that is the way that you can have the strength to throw these things away, that you're being guided towards something greater. You're realizing that you're more than just DNA and experiences from your childhood, right? You are potentially divine in nature if you choose it. Okay, so that's the video for today, folks. Hope everybody liked it. Please like and subscribe, and take care. See you next time.